Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview with a Zine Quest creator. My name is John with the Rollers of Relay. I am here today with the co-creator of Tales from the Dungeon, Skylar Simmons, who will be releasing the third issue on Zine Quest 3. Skylar, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for everyone.
Absolutely, man. No problem. And you can't see it, but I have it up here right now. Issue 1 is Death. Issue 2
hmm
is Psychedelic. And issue
Yeah.
3 is going to be Secret. Psychedelic, when you sent me that, is awesome. I think it is very
Yeah.
clever. And I could, even though it's like a supplement, I could see all those spells and how they would be acted out. But before we get into the actual crux of the game, let's kind of learn about you. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into game creation and playing games and things?
So I've been gaming for probably over 20 years, I think, at this point. It started back in D&D Second Edition and Magic cards. Magic cards probably longer than 20 years. I started jumping into Magic about 93, 94, shortly after they came out. And then just been playing ever since and amassing more and more. I do every kind of role-playing game you can think of now. I'm a big fan of OSR clones and simple stuff. I'm also a big collector of books. Got really big into board games and started trying to do some board game design and work. I've got some friends that do actual board game publishing and RPG publishing on a bigger scale. So I like to try and work with them and ask them questions and stuff. And those walls are kind of high. Some of those things require a lot of money to get those projects going. Even if you have an idea for a very simple board game, the gap between idea, even through design, playtesting, to actual production and getting into a gamer's hands or customer's hands is pretty large. So I tried going down that road a little bit. It ends up being a little bit too much of a time sink or too big of a project for me to handle right now. And that's when I kind of found zines. Zine Quest 1, I think it was. I didn't even realize really that it was going on, that it was a part of a thing. I'm a big Kickstarter backer, and I just started seeing all these RPGs, so I started backing them. And then Zine Quest 2 and all this stuff. And next thing you know, I've got hundreds of zines. And then me and my friends start writing the Tales from the Dungeon. And it was perfect timing. Zine Quest 3 came out. We're about ready to do our third issue. So we were like, well, we'll delay our release by a couple weeks and we'll just align with Zine Quest 3 and release at the same time with that. So that's kind of how this kind of all came about.
Nice. So kind of the stars kind of aligned for you, at
Yeah.
least upon release date. That's interesting. Did you have any issues with Kickstarter as far as their guidelines and things like that?
No, we were already going for kind of an old school feel for fifth edition. I'm a big collector of like Black Hack, White Hack, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and Warlock does their Coppola Quarterly every month. And looking at all those things, we knew that we wanted to do something that had like a DCC type of feel with artwork and rules, but it was for fifth edition. And so for our first two editions, we had already been doing that black and white, to keeping it simple. We were in the range of 28 to 35 pages, 36 pages. And so we felt right in line with Kickstarter's rules.
Perfect. So you were already kind of like
Yeah.
already on it and didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to Tales from the Dungeon. I know what you told me, and I don't want to give it away because I think it's a really interesting idea. Why don't you give us kind of like the elevator pitch of what Tales from the Dungeon is?
So Tales from the Dungeon is this collection of rules, NPCs, characters, spells, kind of all of the accessory items for fifth edition. And the idea, though, that we try to stick to is every release is around a certain theme. So our first issue, we did death. So everything was kind of death centric. There was a graveyard, there were gravekeepers, there was a one shot in there that had a kind of a twist ending in the end of it. All the magic items were death related, like a magical noose or embalming fluid. The second one was psychedelics, which we had pipe wizards and smoke readings, some interesting herbs that you can consume for interesting effects, some Alice in Wonderland kind of tie-ins. And the third one here is secrets. And the idea with secrets is it's all those things, it's all the thief guild kind of stuff. But specifically what we're doing is trying to look outside of what I think is typical for fantasy thieves and assassins, instead of just having like, oh, it's daggers of venom and cloak and dagger stuff. It's the other side of the secret's house. So we've got some tie-ins to kind of your espionage things that are more modern. So maybe you're familiar with this concept called number towers. It came out around Cold War. You'd have these towers that would relay these encoded messages to
Yeah.
the spies, right? So we just take something like that and we say, well, what does that look like in a fantasy world? We've got message, we've got all these things. So now imagine these towers where if you know thieves can't, you can receive messages from this tower, and the message is some sort of like encrypted code, something like, you know, the bird leaves the coop at 12 o'clock. And so now if you're a DM, you can tell your PC, like, you know, there's a message tower in this town. You can speak, thieves can't. You get the message, and it's just this code: the bird leaves the coop at 12 o'clock. So it's kind of an abstract plot hook that you can tie in. It pulls in a lot of background elements for thieves that I think you don't generally see in a lot of current 5th edition stuff. And so we've done a lot of that.
That's really really interesting. I like that, and I like the take on the number towers or the number stations, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And is that the kind of thing where, you know, is it going to have like smoke signals, or, I mean, don't tell too much if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so we've got a little bit of each, and what we try to do is do some random tables for things. So we've got like the number towers. We've got a series of guilds, and all the guilds kind of have an interplay with each other. And one of the things that we didn't really hit real hard on is, like, we don't have an assassination guild so much. There's some people that kind of do it, but you've got like your fencing guild, your guild that will fleece black market items. You've got your smugglers guild. You've got this kind of stuff. Your intelligence operations organization. So now if you're a rogue PC, instead of just always being an assassin, there's a little bit more options for you in terms of role play.
So you told us, you know, with Zine Quest, you kind of fell right into the guidelines and fell right into the timeline. Is there, do you have any kind of fear or any kind of anxiety releasing the first week of Zine Quest? Because I know that the way that it seems from the RPG Zine page, there's going to be a lot of people that are releasing on the first week. So does that make you anxious, or does that make you confident, or?
I think it's going to work out well. I can speak from my personal experience as a purchaser. But come that second half of the month, people are going to start getting fatigue. I've got over 300 and maybe 50 Kickstarters that I've backed, and you start to get inundated with information. So we've got a lot of people that are going to go in hot and heavy those first few weeks, and I think they're going to end up, especially as they start getting those constant emails, especially if they're new to Kickstarter, they're going to start to fade off, and it's going to become a little bit of a problem, kind of trying to keep track of what's new, what's you know, just dropping day one launch, what's about to quit, and we've got hundreds of zines that are supposed to be launching this time through. So I honestly don't know if there's going to be a better case or worst case scenario to launch at the beginning of the month or at the end. The thing I tried to do when we scheduled our kickoff was just follow Kickstarter's guidance. Thursday is typically when they say is the best time to launch. That's why I went for the 4th instead of the 1st. The 1st, I think, is going to have a huge surge of launch all at the same time. So, you know, hopefully that surge will happen. Thursday will come. We'll launch, and then we'll be able to catch that big Thursday crowd, Friday crowd, and drift through the weekend on that.
Yeah, I think that's a smart idea. So we all know that backing does not equal buying. But at me as a consumer, what kind of tiers will you have for your backers?
Yeah, so we have 3 tiers. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. Our first tier is $2. It's just for the PDF version of the zine. The next tier up, I believe we've got it set at $12 right now, is for the physical copy of the zine and the PDF version. And then we have a $30 tier, which is limited supply, but I'll send you all 3 physical copies. So you'll get Tales from the Dungeon 1, 2, and 3, and you'll get PDFs for all 3.
As simple as possible. Couldn't get any easier, right?
Yeah.
And that works perfectly with, you know, so you are a member of the RPG Zine page on Facebook that I speak of. Yeah. There's been an event, kind of like a I guess you would say, an event or an initiative called $28, 28
Yeah.
days, where you back a project that you wouldn't typically back on every day of the month in February for at least $1. That's something I definitely plan on doing. Is that something that you plan on doing as well?
Yeah, I'm on the list as both a zine for getting some of that attention, but also someone who's going to try and contribute as a part of it.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I need to find where to personally sign up because I'm not releasing a game. But the sign up that I've seen has all been for games, so I'll have to go digging on there again and find out where you can.
I think it was just more of an informal commitment on the comment section there.
Definitely will do that then. I've been a big proponent of that, and I'm a big proponent of that either way. If it wasn't going to be something that was vocalized, because you as a creator, I consider you an artist. So what you're releasing to us is your art, and the fact that you have this art and that you're willing to show it off to us, the least that I can do is back your project for $1 to help you create that art and to help go towards creating more art. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the zines to me are not necessarily all just games. They are art. I mean, someone has to either scour the internet or pay someone or take their time to create all the actual pictures that are on there, to create the templates and all that stuff. That all takes time. You don't just produce these things overnight. So to you and your team, I thank you for sharing your art with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we wanted to do. When we first kind of had the idea for this, the goal was to make it a collaboration amongst anyone that wanted to participate. We would come up with a theme, and anyone that wanted to write a short, like, one-page article that related to the theme, we would stick in there. The problem is that collaboration is really hard when you don't have any street cred. Nobody wants to write anything for just someone random. So we were like, okay, there's a few of us that are willing to write. Zines are fairly easy. I think you have 5 to 10 pieces of art and 28 pages. You're in around 5,000 words, which isn't too much. And once you start throwing in stat blocks and things like that, you'll start eating up pages pretty quick. So it was easy enough for just 2 of us to really knock out the bulk of the material that goes into it. We have sourced artists through Facebook fantasy artist groups, and we've had great luck getting really stellar artists on there. So we've been able to knock out these first few, just a couple of us. I think ideally, though, we want to make it a platform where anybody that's interested in just writing and trying to share their ideas, we'll try and be that river, we'll try and be that vein that allows them to, hey, I've got a cool idea for a magic item, but I want to share it with the world, but I don't have a good way to do that. So send it to us, and we'll put it out in our next issue, kind of thing. That's the idea long term.
Yeah, I like that. And with you being a part of Zine Quest and with how much traction it's getting right now, I mean, I don't know if it did this the last 2 years, but I just logged into Kickstarter today because I thought it was February 1st. And so I logged in, and the first thing I saw was a giant banner go across a Zine Quest 3 all the way across. Yeah. So there is visibility, and who knows? You could get the traction, and if that's something that you're looking to get for you and your team, I'm sure there's people out there, and I'm sure if when this releases and people see it or listen to it, whatever the case may be, that might help you out a bit.
I think it's something that you play a lot of games, you meet a lot of people, and everyone's got their story or this thing that they always like to tell, or they always tell about that one time their D&D group, or this one item, or the one character, or the one NPC. And a lot of times, though, like I was saying, the effort to share that beyond just people that you interact with is the juice isn't really worth the squeeze. A lot of times, it's very hard to do. So just creating this collaborative thing, where we handle the layout, we'll work with the art. If artists want to participate in it, then just name spread. That's great. That's the hope. The hope is that we can just help people, get that notch on their belt, saying, "Hey, I did this thing, and it got sent out and sold, and people use it in their games." And I think that makes a lot of writers. Everyone's a writer. Makes a lot of writers happy.
I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Is there any kind of thought, or have you put any kind of thought into maybe Tales from the Dungeon being like the production, and people creating their own scenarios to go with what you've already created in your first 3 issues? So like create scenarios around what you've already created in your zines?
We're open to it. It's a good idea. I haven't really thought about that. I think we'd still need to get a little bit more credibility to have people want to sit down and write like a full-on one-shot or something like that around our concepts that we put out there. And we've got another issue. So our goal here is we're going to do 4 issues, and that's kind of our test pilot phase. We did death, psychedelics, secrets, and we're looking at doing love for the 4th one. We kind of want to do a play on sex, drugs, and rock and roll was the idea.
I like it.
But love is hard to write about in a way that is fun for everybody at a table to play with. So I think we're going to have to sit down and think about it a long time. That makes it so that it's something that people can use that is also not too, I don't know, weird.
Yeah.
We'll just say weird. Because with psychedelics, right, it's basically drugs. But if you read it, we had to write it in a way that it wasn't adult or mature. It felt very like organic to D&D. It would be very easy to use a pipe wizard that has a Gandalf style pipe, and he smokes from it and he reads the smoke and stuff like that. And that was kind of the idea that went into that.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I thought was the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really interesting. I'll have to pick up Death, or I'll just have to back for $30 and get them all. So we said that you were a co-creator. Would you like to talk about who you created this with specifically, and maybe what everyone's part is in the project?
We have one other main contributor. His name's Chris Rice, and he's kind of my he's the other half. We hire our artists. That's kind of a rotating table, depending on who's available. And we have people that help editing and help with some spot items. But I don't know if they want to be called out here or not. They kind of like to be quiet on some of that stuff.
I hear you.
But Chris helps me write. He's about a 50% contributor, and he likes to do cartoons. I'm sure you're familiar with like Knights of the Round Table, the classic comic that was in the back of like Dragon magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So we started putting in one of those kinds of cartoons, kind of like a single pane, Far Side style D&D comic in each issue too. So he does that also.
Sweet. Okay. I'm trying to think here. Most importantly, when do you launch? Let everybody know when you launch.
Yes, we launched February 4th, which is this upcoming Thursday as of this recording. Probably midday.
Okay, so
we'll run for 2 weeks. So we end on the 19th, I believe it is.
Cool. I look forward to it. Like I said, you got a backer out of me. I think it's a really, really cool concept. And I think that even though I'm not a big D&D guy, like I said, even though I might not play the game, I'm a fan of any kind of art. So there's a lot of zines that I have purchased that I literally have never played, but I read them.
Yeah.
And I like to know about them. And it could be one of those things that it just doesn't interest me. But who knows who might come over one day and they have an idea and say, "Oh, dude, I got the game just for you."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's one of those things where it's not a $60 companion guide.
Yeah.
It could be one of those like a $10 or $12 thing that I can just say, "Okay, here, dude, you keep it. I've never played it. You can keep it."
And there are some great systems out there that have gotten a lot of popularity. There's one that I love called Everyone is John, and I don't think it considers itself a zine, but I think the book itself is maybe 40 pages, and that's including scenarios and all the base rules and everything like that. And it's so easy to learn, so quick to run. Everyone has fun with it, and it's interesting to see those kinds of things come out of these small product kind of projects. Mothership's another big one. I think it launched actually as a zine, and huge. I mean, it's super big. It's super popular. It's winning awards. They've done multiple Kickstarters now for different products for it, and it's really cool to see that kind of stuff come out of these things.
Yeah, Mothership is what actually got me into looking at zines. I didn't even know zines were a thing, at least for games, until someone told me about Mothership because I was looking for a Call of Cthulhu style /Alien /The Thing, and they said that's exactly what Mothership is going for. So pick that up. And I picked it up, and then it led me down a rabbit hole that I'm just stuck in now.
Well, and you also get to see things that I think, no matter what role playing game you like or style of role playing game you like, that I think are really inventive. Mothership started doing stuff, and they weren't the only ones, but to put one shots or entire supplements on just a pamphlet, right? Just a little threefold pamphlet, and there's a whole one shot there, a whole adventure. And I think that that's a real interesting take. And I love that you can get a full storyline out of 1,000 words. I'm less excited about the 300-page supplements that come out, or the companies that put out an adventure that is 40,000 words, and it is just blocks. It's just dense text. And when you try to read it as a DM, you got to take notes. It's like taking a college course. You got to take notes. You got to break it down. Everything's so specific. I do a lot better personally running games when I've just got some loose guide rails. I know what the objectives are. I know some of the environmental details, and then we just go for it. And I really appreciate that a lot of zines are able to do that. They're able to keep it simple, straightforward, and it ends up being a lot more impactful in the game than the 40,000 word behemoths that they kind of waste a lot of
mainstream
space.
yeah I totally get it too, man. But it's also like one of those things where if you were to look at a painting or even read a book, the author or the painter or whatever knows more about it than you do and can give you more information. If I'm looking at like you said, a 40,000 page or word document, if I see that, I'm like, I'm not playing that.
Yeah,
that's too much for me. And it's not, I like something like you said where there's a main point, and here's 6 or 7 different branches you can go down that all lead to this potential ending. And that's another thing that I like about zines. It's very user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before we end and before we have to say goodbye, is there anything else you would like to promote? Any games, websites, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that?
I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at _blackboxgames. And that's what we do the publishing for Tales from the Dungeon through. And the name for Tales from the Dungeon actually came from a Facebook group that we run called Tabletop Dungeon. And it's just a generic Facebook group. We talk about role-playing games, board games, painting minis, whatever. And that's where we try to get that collaboration from for people that want to participate in future zine issues.
Sweet. And one of the things that how Rollers of Relay started was a Discord server for me and a couple friends to learn Call of Cthulhu together. And one of the things now is it's more of a big community where anyone can come and play games on the server if they want to, or they can record it and put it in a podcast or whatever the case may be. And someone just decided that they wanted to be the GM for Dungeons and Dragons group, so I'm going to buy this, and I think I'm going to keep the physical copy for myself and send the PDF to them, and they can inject that into their game, and I think it would be really interesting.
I'd love for more people to pick it up. I know that 5th edition is complicated, as it is. It's already a lot of rules. D&D is one of the more gritty combat systems out there for role-playing games. There are more complicated, but comparatively to a lot of other things, it's pretty complicated. And so people get kind of weary about injecting additional rules into their games. But we have one in our death issue that we call Death Exhaustion. And it's a very simple rule, but I think it adds a lot to your game. And that is, this rule is basically whenever a character reaches 0 HP, you take 1 level of exhaustion. And exhaustion is a mechanic in 5th that people don't use too much. And this forces it into play. And exhaustion becomes a very difficult, brutal mechanic for your players to have to manage. And at 6 levels of exhaustion, PC dies. So, and you can't heal exhaustion other than rest. And there's a lot of things in there. So I think that you don't have to use the whole supplement. You just pick and choose. And that's kind of what we wanted to do. If you want to just use one rule or one magic item, go for it. You don't need the full thing. But something we try to work in there, though, is you see it a lot in the Secrets one. There's interplay between the parts. Maybe there's some sort of quest item where it's like, hey, try and find this item. It's supposed to be the king's, what's the word? mistresses dress, right? It's the king got it tailored for the queen, but he made it a little too small on purpose. And then,
Gotcha.
And then one of the message tower secrets is something about, a noble heiress that's gone missing. So like there's some things that start to interplay, and you can see that there's a plot line there, but we don't define it. We just put some kind of whispered aspects to it and let you as a DM kind of figure out how these things connect and let your players take them and run with them. Because that's what most DMs do anyways, right? They throw out a thing, players hard stop it and turn it right, and then you have to adjust. So you just take one of these rumors and you stick it out to your players and then let them kind of drive where it goes. And then we've got some surrounding elements that tie together to help it along. And we try to do that for all of our issues. So you'll see that with death, you'll see that with drugs, and you'll see that, or psychedelic, and you'll see that with secrets.
Sweet, man. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you having me. I look forward to the 4th. I already have it as notify me on launch. So, I'm going to definitely back it. You can also back it. The people listening can back it at on February 4th on Kickstarter as part of Zine Quest 3's initiative. It's called Tales from the Dungeon Issue 3. If you would like to know more about Skylar, you can reach him on Twitter at _black box games, and you can find the tabletop dungeon group on Facebook. If you want to know more about the Rollers of Relay, you can visit the Linktree page at linktr.ee/Rollers of Relay, where you can find our social media links, podcast links, video links, and our Ko-fi page. There's a lot of Zine Quest things coming around. I've done a lot of interviews with this. I really look forward to your game, Skylar. And if you'd like to follow up after everything's said and done, I'd love to talk to you again.
It'd be cool to do a post-combat analysis of how Kickstarter went.
Yeah, and if you are interested and you ever want to play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, please join the Discord, and you're more than welcome to introduce your games and stuff on there as well.
Sounds good.
All right, cool, man. Thank you.
Thank you.